What's up? Welcome back to my channel, or for the first time if you're new, I'm Sylvan, and today I'm going to be reacting to episodes 7 and 8. I'm going to be reacting to Apothecary Diaries, Season 2, episodes 7 and 8. I won't delay things any further, I'm excited to get into this, so feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, leave a comment on your thoughts, and let's get into this. As always, into the intro first. I'm curious to see where we go from here, because we ended last episode with the Emperor seeming to ponder something that may have to do with Mau Mau. We'll have to see. Even if it's not my favorite, like, opening ever, very much so this opening has grown on me. There's a lot of aspects of it that I quite enjoy. I'm curious to see what that is about, that guy sort of cowering away as the flowers grow, because that's one of the few details in this opening that we haven't really gotten shown what it's supposed to represent. And this too is sort of interesting, though I wouldn't be surprised if the kid Jinchi is not supposed to be something that we, like, see in any real form, but who knows? Maybe there'll be some weird thing that happens, but this isn't like a fantastical show, so I don't think he's gonna de-age or anything. Alright, let's get into it. Where do we start? A ball? Oh my god, okay. Just as I'm talking about it. Uh... Jinchi backstory? That's a fucking glare. What the hell is happening? Obviously they're important people, but... Oh... Okay. I'm very intrigued by that. Hmm. Calming down by doing some sword training. Fair. Oh. Interesting. Yeah, so though it was pretty easy to put together, that just outright confirms for us that his position is the brother of the Emperor. Hmm. Mau Mau spying on the education. Fair. Yeah, fair. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, at least to a degree. That's good. Mm, okay. Seem to have a pretty good setup here so far for just a school. He's really looking at that shrine. Okay. Oh. Okay. Interesting. Hmm. Wow, so it's a pretty important place. Okay, I guess was. Mm. Yeah. A quirky doctor, you say? Yeah, exposing a bit too much about yourself for your own liking. Okay, back to that. Yeah, the Emperor's gonna ask something of her. Okay, it is all just coming to that for this episode. Okay. Oh. Of course. Fair. Interesting. Okay. A fucking puzzle room. This is an interesting episode already. So are Jinchi and Mao Mao here to help the Emperor solve this puzzle? Okay. Explains why there's so many rooms. Okay. The question is, why is Mao Mao and Jinchi here? Okay. Okay. What's on the other side? A dead end. Okay. So he failed. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, Jinshi's been very quiet and serious throughout all of this. Hmm. Yeah. Wild. Yeah. I have a feeling the reason that Mao Mao was brought along is because the Emperor knew she'd do this kind of thing. Ooh, that's a comment. Yeah. Interesting. Related to medicine? That her realizing something? Yeah. That is interesting for the founding to be more maternal. Okay. He's clearly figured something out. Oh. Okay. Fair. Is supposed to be a test for the Emperor. Oh my god. God. Wild from the Emperor. Yeah. Admittedly, we don't see much of him, but okay. Not directly opposing. Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah. Choose the red door. Oh, color blindness. Okay. Ooh. I did not expect the music. Okay. Interesting. But instead, it is Mau Mau, just a servant girl. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Color blindness. Okay, yeah. Don't pass through the red door. The blue is the only one that a red, green, and colorblind person would understand is not red. Yeah. That's cool. Interesting. Okay. Interesting difference in demographic. Yeah, okay, so that's what did it. He's studied in the West, so he'd be aware of that. Okay. Yeah. But not the green, they would have to assess that that is red. Yeah, wild. Yeah. Interesting. I didn't know that bit. I wonder how true that is. Yeah. Almost certainly. Right. Okay. I'm loving the backstory that we've been getting this season. Right. Okay. It's just a legend, a fable. That's a way of describing it. Yeah. So, despite being a paternal bloodline, they chose emperors through a hereditary trait of the maternal line. And that way, yeah, okay, interesting. Huh. Yep. That's cool. Yeah. Hmm. Yep. Okay. God. God. Yeah. Hmm. Okay. Nope, not at all. Of course. God damn it, Mao Mao. You just have to not care at the exact points where you could figure things out. Okay. Interesting episode. This was a very unique episode, I think, for this series. Most episodes are built around some kind of mystery going on. This one is as well, but in a fairly distinct way, I'd say. It's a very finely tuned episode in a lot of ways. It's the kind of thing where this actually can serve as a pretty well isolated episode, all things considered, because it doesn't really tie into any other plotline we have. Every scene is encapsulated into the origin of this empire. The only part that is in any way separate is the very beginning of the episode, where we see a child Jinshi in a very interesting circumstance. We get the explanation from him that the man who approached him and then got carried off later was his father, and the older woman that we don't see the face of was his grandmother, which paints an interesting picture for the kind of dynamic that was going on amongst the royal family in Jinshi's childhood. And amongst it, we have the fact that his mother is glaring at them. And it's unclear if she's glaring at both of them or just one of them. There's just not enough context to fully pin that down. But clearly, something went down around here, because we see near the end of this memory his father being carried away almost. And we don't know if his grandmother is the mother of his father or of the other side of the family, but either way is implied to be a very complicated scenario. And I'm very curious to see if we learn more. We also, during this time, get direct confirmation that Jinshi's position in the royal family is brother to the emperor. We very easily could have guessed this from fairly early on in season 1, but to have it actually more explicitly confirmed that that is his position is nice. It means that we're not just guessing, even though we can assume the answer. And I like how Jinshi, in thinking about this, goes, I can't keep hiding this from Mao Mao, but she's bound to figure it out eventually, so he's clearly sort of surprised that she hasn't figured it out yet, is sort of the vibe I get. She absolutely is smart enough to figure that out. She basically put all the pieces together last season at one point, but what Jinshi is underestimating is Mao Mao's capacity to just not worry about things like that, which we see at the very end of the episode, where she begins to question who he is and then go, nope, never mind, I shouldn't be thinking about this. There's no point. That scene and the very ending bit are connected in that sense, but otherwise the episode is entirely focused on giving us the necessary details for this little pocket mystery that we have in this episode. We start by seeing the school, meeting the teacher, acknowledging the current setup of the school and its circumstances, the context surrounding it, there being about like 20 students or whatever, but that having grown from 10. We meet the teacher, and we hear this story about the origins of the entire nation with the Mother Royal, and we learn about this shrine that was this test of sorts for any new heirs to deem if they are worthy of being emperor, while also getting the information that it just hasn't been used in decades, because a couple generations ago, there only was one heir left after most of the potential heirs died out due to illness. So they didn't have a reason to use it. We also have the setup here that the teacher knew Lauman, who is the adoptive father of Mao Mao. And then from there, we immediately get into Mao Mao being invited alongside Jinchi by the emperor to enter the shrine to take this test. The vibe I get from this is that obviously the emperor is already the emperor, so he doesn't need to take this test to be deemed proper of being the emperor. It much more speaks to me the idea that the emperor personally is intrigued by this and wants to take this test to see if he is of worthy blood or whatever. It's something more personal is the vibe I get. It's possible that there's a grander political reason for him doing this, but if there is, it's unclear. And I won't worry about getting too much into the details of the actual shrine puzzle, because they explained it very thoroughly. The entire thing was someone who is red-green colorblind would be able to parse their way through this correctly, because if someone with that kind of colorblindness were to take this test, their best choices to ensure that they don't make a mistake off of their colorblindness would lead them to the correct answer, which is a way to ensure that someone with that kind of colorblindness would be the emperor. Now, of course, this is also complicated by the fact that this is a patrilineal society / royal line, which means that it isn't inherently guaranteed that that would be followed, because it was from the founding Mother Royal that this colorblindness came from. But that's where, as they bring up the detail of a concubine could be brought in to aid the potential emperor, which, as Mao Mao acknowledges, is effectively a subtle, peaceful infiltration of the royal line to ensure that there always is intelligent and capable women who are within the royal family. It's very interesting and very intriguing at that. It's a very solid explanation of a lot of the interesting sort of political intrigue of the past of the setting, which I quite enjoy. But other than that, really the only thing I feel of note to mention in this episode, because most of the episode is spent on just explaining what this puzzle is and how to solve it. The main thing, other than that, I'd like to acknowledge is, first off, how surprisingly casual the Emperor is being in this time, both early in this test, the first time they go through, and at the very end, once Mao Mao has solved this, there is this joke from both the Emperor and the old eunuch who is guiding the test of that maybe the Emperor should take Mao Mao as a concubine, which, first off, crazy, but second off, it shows how much respect both the Emperor and this eunuch have developed for Mao Mao as a person. Her intellect and capacity for problem solving and knowledge is something they deeply value and respect, to the point that the Emperor can casually joke around what should just be a servant girl. Maybe you would make a good concubine. Maybe you would work well in the royal family. That kind of thing. Because that's effectively what a concubine in the Rear Palace would be, is someone with the potential to become empress. But within this, there is also at one point a very offhanded comment of the Emperor, when sort of joking about this, that, nah, she's not for me, but hey, Jinchi, maybe you could, which nobody really acknowledges. It doesn't really get mentioned. It just is an offhanded comment that gets passed by. And then later in the episode, when talking about the logistics of the royal bloodline and what it would mean to thin out the blood because of the problems of, as they called it, too thick of a bloodline, which obviously is just talking about if they interbreed too much, you know, can't keep it within the family, that kind of thing. But when talking about that, there's this interesting moment that is lingered on at the very end, pretty much, where it's really the Emperor and the eunuch talking about this, but then as the Emperor acknowledges he's aware of the political issues surrounding that, the eunuch acknowledges that before saying, please be careful, and bowing his head, but then rather than it seeming to be referring to the Emperor that he's talking to, the Emperor looks to Jinshi. Obviously, We know from the beginning of the episode that is explicitly confirmed. Jinshi's position is that of the brother of the Emperor, meaning that he also, if he has any kids in the future, will be continuing the royal bloodline as well, and hypothetically those kids could, if I understand things correctly, could be in line for the throne, which is very interesting to me then that they're directing it towards him, because he currently is holding a position where that isn't really something on his radar. The biggest position of that is his infatuation with Mao Mao. Obviously, Mao Mao doesn't fully pick up on this, but the fact that there are all these jokes about Mao Mao being raised up to a position of concubine, and the intent of this entire test being to bring outside blood into the royal line to ensure that the royal line maintains this intellect and knowledge that the original Mother Royal had, it sort of is all leading to the idea of maybe in some hypothetical future, Jinshi and Mao Mao properly get together, meaning that Mao Mao effectively is in some way part of the royal family, and any kids they have could be in the running for Emperor, and at least by the conditions of this ancient test with this shrine, those kids would be some of the most fitting for the role. Which is just interesting that that seems to be sort of the angle it leads me. It's entirely possible that I'm misinterpreting, but that is sort of the angle it takes me, which I'm very intrigued by. But other than that, I don't really have too much else to say about the episode, so I'm going to move on to the next one. All right, I'm going to just get straight into the next episode with no delay. Here we go. I wonder if we'll ever start an episode not opening with the opening. I don't see why they'd break the cycle at this point. Obviously, plenty of shows will keep it varied, but given the fact that we're this far into the season and it's always opened this way, I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. I'm very curious to see what the next opening will be, though. We still have a few episodes, though. At this point, though, we do have a lot of the stuff from the opening already portrayed. There's only, like, a few things. Oh, that's the doors! Nice. Okay. Yeah, I think really one of the only things is maybe more information with Jinshi's past as a kid, and that one guy that's sort of like cowering into some blooming flowers. I'm curious to see, though. I feel like we have to get something more with that, like, crystal or stone or whatever that Jinshi picked up that his father dropped. Given that in the opening we see Mao Mao holding it. But anyways, let's see where we are now. Based on the name of the episode, I have a feeling we're looking at the Empress Dowager right now. Oh? Wow. Yeah, of course she'd like that. Yeah, she just likes the idea. She just asked for it. Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, this is like a dream come true for her. Yeah. God. Yeah, lizards aren't insects. Nope, that's not her. That's Shisui. Yeah. She is friends with that person, though. Shaolin, what are you saying? That's a way to describe her. Great. Fair, fair. What is it? Oh, from Jinshi. God, they can know him by his scent? What the fuck? Yeah. I'm curious what this is leading to. Hmm. The North Side is a real mystery that we've been exploring this season. Oh, wow, another thing that could be used for that. Yeah. Fair. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. With ease, because not everyone knows about the flowers. That is interesting. That is what that implies. Okay, we're getting back to that. They keep reminding us of that. God, she's sweet. I feel like those bars aren't big enough. Well, are like too big, rather. Oh no. God. Yep. Oh. God, she really loves them. Hmm. That would be the Empress Dowager. Yep. Seems like it. Yeah, yeah. Hmm. Yeah. I didn't realize it was unofficial though. Huh. Interesting attitude switch up from Shisui. Oh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Fair. Yeah. Interesting that we're getting into that. That is a fair question. Yeah. God. Yeah. Everyone's working hard. Yeah. That's the vibe it gives off. Oh, the Dowager's coming here. Anshi is her name. Okay. Hmm. Seems like it. I'd hope so. Even letting her play with the baby. Yeah. God, Mao Mao cannot afford to like she cannot avoid getting noticed. Huh. Okay. Mm. And now they're left alone together. They have something to discuss. God, Mao Mao is unintentionally infiltrating the royal family so hard. Yep. Hmm. You have a pretty deep knowledge. Hmm. Okay. I'm loving the lighting here. Oh. Wild thing to ask. Interesting. I'm very curious about that. Yeah, if you don't have a strong understanding of science and medicine. Interesting. Puppet of the Empress. Okay. Jesus Christ. Yeah, we have been hearing about that little by little. Ugh. That's rough. Mm, yeah. Okay, we're managing to piece a lot together here. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Mm. Uh, tricky, tricky. Okay. Pretty big deal for just a casual get together. Yeah. Outside the rear palace. Yeah, this is a pretty big deal, all things considered. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Fair, fair. Yeah. True. She is the wild card. Very hard to predict what she's thinking. Oh. Oh. Huh. Yeah, yeah. Oh. Oh. Ooh. My theories. Mm. Spooky. Yeah. Interesting. Yep. Okay. Okay, so it's well kept. Hmm. Oh, okay. What's this? All right. Huh. A very historically important room, then. Just showing it to her, all right. So-called Empress. Uh-huh. Huh. Okay. So it was she was glaring at him in that flashback. I see. Well preserved. Okay. After a year. That is abnormal, but there are ways to explain it. Yeah. Wild to see all of the characters like this when talking about death. Oh. Okay, so that's why they've come to her now. What's her request? We don't find out. Okay. Clearly, this is a setup for the next episode. We're getting a longer plot line this time. This is a fairly straightforward episode, but also a complicated one at that. Once again, it's a very focused episode. And once again, we're getting into the history of the nation, where last episode was much more about the grand scale history and the machinations of its founding. This episode much more has to do with the history of the last emperor and the empress. Mainly the emperor, but the empress is clearly a piece to all this. The first bit of the episode is separate from this, just acknowledging a change in status quo for Mao Mao of now she is living in a storage room, which she is super happy about, which I find really funny. We then spend a little time with Mao Mao tracking down Shisui, reaffirming how much Shisui loves bugs, acknowledging that there's a rumor going around about Shisui that people are suspecting is Mao Mao actually, but then we shift towards the appearance of the Empress Dowager and getting involved with that. We get a glance at her and how her appearance and her going to the clinic might result in a change to how medicine is conducted in the Rear Palace. She acknowledges that she'd be tempted to hear about that, but she chooses not to. But then it turns out she's going to get her meeting with the Empress Dowager anyways, because she came to Gyokyo specifically. At first, it seems like it's pretty much just to hang out and say hi to each other and stuff, because Mao Mao acknowledges that they seem to have an attitude more of friends that are just a little bit separated in years. Quickly, it becomes clear that Anshi, the Empress Dowager, her intent here is to meet with Mao Mao, and she has a request for her, asking her the question, did I curse the previous emperor? Which is a very intriguing problem to be offered, because it becomes clear that she very much did not care for the late emperor. And in that, we get some of the history of the late emperor, more than we had prior, showing that he was not popular, he was seen as a buffoon, an idiot, and overall very distasteful, going for way too young women, that kind of thing. Just not a good person and not a good emperor. And there's the implication that the Empress was much more the intelligent person who actually knew what she was doing. And this is very interesting when tied in with the flashback we saw at the start of last episode, because that basically primed us for this. Clearly there is more than meets the eye here, as the previous emperor was clearly fearful, or at the very least nervous, around Jinshi's grandmother. Presumably that would have been the previous Empress Dowager, but we don't necessarily have enough details to say that for certain. But it's just interesting to keep that in mind while we think about this. And the main information we have for why she suspects that she may have cursed the previous emperor was because she was actively wishing for him to die, and then a year after his death, when she saw his body, she discovered that he had not decayed at all in the last year. Something abnormal that someone who doesn't fully understand science or medicine or decay, it makes sense that they would think that that was some kind of magic or curse that caused that. But it is very interesting that she wants an answer to this, given the fact that she doesn't seem to have cared at all for the previous emperor. We got that glare in last episode's flashback, and we have the admission that she was actively wishing him death, pretty much. But regardless of the reason, we have basically the entire setup for presumably what we'll be getting into next episode, which is the room where he died, which is also the room that he was raised, and a lot of other things, and how it has been left untouched, probably since pretty much his death, but that it is going to be demolished soon. So there is a time limit on how long Mao Mao can take to figure this out. Very much that side of things is more of a setup than anything, but it is leaning into what this season has been doing a lot, which is diving into the history of this nation. It's very interesting. I appreciate it a lot because I'm a big fan of lore. But really the last thing I would like to acknowledge for this episode is when Mao Mao is thinking about the logistics of the Empress Dowager and the royal family. She exposits that the Empress Dowager had her first child, being the current emperor, very young, which ties into the previous emperor and his very unfortunate taste, to say it politely, which explains why she appears so young despite being the mother of the current emperor, because she had her first child very, very young. And then Mao Mao begins to note the younger brother of the emperor, which she, as far as she knows, has never seen, but she acknowledges that based on when he was supposed to be born, that he should only be a year or so older than her, which would mean that she had the second child much older. And it's here where the unfortunate taste of the former emperor leads Mao Mao to an interesting thought, which is very fair, if not gross, that it's something that could be used as evidence, is the fact of, by the time the second child of the Empress Dowager is born, she would not have been young enough for the emperor to be interested in her. Ah, gross. But it is a fair point to make. It leads to the thought that it is entirely possible the brother of the emperor is not actually the child of the former emperor, which is a very, very interesting detail that I have a feeling will be gotten into more. Between this and last episode's flashback, I believe that it is very likely we will relatively soon have Mao Mao come to understand a lot more about the royal family, including, in all likelihood, Jinshi's position in it. I have a feeling, based on how they've been setting things up, that there is not a way for that secret to be hidden much longer, at least to Mao Mao. At the end of last episode, she already was beginning to question it. At the beginning of last episode, we had Jinshi essentially setting up a Chekhov's gun, saying it won't take too much longer for her to figure out, and I don't want to keep this a secret. And then this episode, we have her figuring out details about the royal family as a whole. So I suspect that whether or not it's in this next episode, relatively soon, Mao Mao will begin to figure this out. And I'm very intrigued to see what happens when that is discovered. It should be very interesting. I could very much see that being effectively the point where this core climaxes, where the 12th or 13th episode, depending on how many episodes are in this core, ends, being with that discovery and the aftermath of Mao Mao discovering that, what that means, that kind of thing. Because so far, in the first season at least, major status quo changes happened at those end of core marks. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happens at the end of this season. But other than that, really the only thing I have to note is this interaction between Mao Mao and Hong Niang. Once again, sticking to my theory, we didn't get anything last episode of her really, but this episode, we have this one interaction with Hong Niang, which really what it serves to do is it doesn't really tease towards Hong Niang being involved in anything that is insidious or anything, but what it does do is tell us that Hong Niang is very loyal and defensive of Gyokyo. She has an intensity to her and an aggression to her that she can tap into when there is a threat to Gyokyo. Despite the fact that so far Mao Mao has been nothing but loyal to Gyokyo and shown no signs of doing anything to harm her, when faced with the knowledge that Mao Mao is someone who has won a lot of favor with the Emperor and now seems to be working for the Empress Dowager as well, she effectively threatens Mao Mao, which is very intriguing. It goes to show that she, as a person, would do anything to protect Gyokyo. If Mao Mao were to become a threat to her, she would be willing to become an enemy of Mao Mao to protect Gyokyo, which I think is just another point towards them, as usual, trying to further characterize her, to get us to understand her intents, her motivations, her personality, so that once whatever she is involved in or will be involved in happens, we can understand why she did it. It's just another point to me to keep with my theory, to stick with it. So that's where I am after this episode. I'm, as always, very much enjoying it, but with that, I will leave things there. I think I've said all the main things I want to say. So if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe, leave a comment on your thoughts, and I hope you all have a great day. Goodbye.